Thank you. Good morning. Salam alaikum. In business terms, it's what we're doing to help our partners measure their return on investment, promote smarter decision making, and enhancing their engagement with consumers. In human terms, it's about making business personal. It's about distilling smart, customer-centric data to deliver a customer experience that not only rewards customers, but also delights them and transforms them into brand ambassadors. So think back for a minute to the experience 150 years ago in some markets and even still in small towns today. You go into the retailer, they know you by name, they understand your needs, what brands you like, they know that you shop for fresh goods on a Thursday. Not only that, they'd personally thank you for their business, and they'd know what kind of reward to give you. Perhaps an extra piece of fruit for you or some chocolates for your children. The reality today is that for most retail customers, it's nowhere near that quality of experience. And that's what we mean by making business personal again. With the right science behind it, we can use technology and data to help recreate that personal connection, that real relationship. But it's not a simple task. Every day we're inundated with vast quantities of data, a veritable data gold rush that will have major ramifications for brands, for consumers, and for marketers. Consider this, when I was an MBA student, rather a long time ago, 30 years or so, the word terabyte had just been coined. Cell phones were the stuff of James Bond movies, and e-commerce meant ordering an item from a retailer's paper catalog. Today we speak about petabytes or zettabytes of data. 5 billion people around the world now use cell phones to send texts, to tweet, to make phone calls and search the internet. Global business to consumer e-commerce sales topped 1 trillion for the first time in 2012. Walmart, for example, processes more than 1 million transactions per hour. YouTube adds 100 hours of video per minute, and 100 terabytes of data is uploaded to Facebook every day. We're entering the very early stages of what I'd call the big data era. In 2012, and this is a really important statistic, the universe comprised of 2.7 zettabytes of content. Well, what's that? But it's a 48% increase from 2011. So in just 1 year, we've seen an increase of 50% in the amount of data collected. And that means that the universe is going to grow exponentially. IDC predicts that 35 zettabytes of data will be created annually by 2020. And those of you who wonder how much that is, 1 zettabyte is 1 billion terabytes, or 10 to the power of 21. Long time since I did math at university, but that's an awful lot. And if you stored 1 zettabyte of data on compact disks and stacked them, they'd reach all the way to Mars. So as data explodes, so obviously will online sales, reaching something like 450 billion transactions per day by 2020. That's 5 million transactions a second. In the Middle East, online sales are expected to double by 2016 to $2.2 billion, and online sales in Egypt have already surged more than 150% in just the last 2 years. The numbers are really mind-boggling. Information around the world is being captured, often in real time. It's being tracked, analyzed, and digested to discover exactly what those interactions and relationships are. But imagine 2 possible scenarios by which these technologies achieve mass adoption. One scenario beneficial to consumers, and the other not so beneficial. In the first scenario, device manufacturers and their partners join forces to build applications that enhance the quality of life. Users are invited to opt in to data sharing applications that provide recognition and reward in exchange for allowing marketers to collect data about their location, what ads they view, their experience inside retail environments, and other behavioral data. In the second scenario, marketers collect data on location, behavior, and preferences, but they do it without the user's knowledge or permission. They sell that data to third parties, because users agreed to terms and conditions provided in a very lengthy legal document that nobody reads, they just tick the box and move on. And since data is sold to the highest bidder, marketers attempt to monetize personal information and then back it up with intrusive targeted advertising that appears to come from Big Brother. Important to note that in this scenario, customers are much more likely to get offers that are optimized for the merchants that are serving them rather than necessarily relevant directly to them or fulfill their needs. The reality is, frankly, that this is actually happening today. There's an enormous amount of data misuse, and the technologies that are just on the verge of being adopted, adopting wearable computers or the Google glasses, etc., these are going to make this problem even more potentially significant. Recognizing the concerns that this really intrusive and one-sided use of data will raise with consumers, our belief is that if we go down this path, these abuses will quickly attract the scrutiny of legislators. That will lead to the creation of very restrictive data legislation, and that raises the cost of marketing for brands and offers, frankly, very little advantage to consumers. So whether big data on the one hand heralds a new golden age of marketing and real relationships, or on the other, a very restrictive environment, really depends on how we as marketers behave over the coming years. So consider two variables, engagement and control, and let's think about what possible futures may emerge through the use of what we're getting from big data. The first we call offer anarchy. In this future, the increasing volume of customer data created by the digitalization of everyday life, it remains freely available and only loosely controlled by regulators or consumers themselves. Consequently, the opportunities presented by big data are overexploited by marketers. The future is centered very heavily on highly promotional, deal-based marketing, and frankly, that results in a lot of frustration for consumers and very little loyalty because of the over-messaging implicit in it. The second is paying to play. Sorry about the order there. In this future, consumers and regulators have acknowledged that personal data is both valuable and powerful. Consequently, access to that data is very highly regulated, and consumers in that environment will naturally offer their data to essentially the highest bidder. That means low loyalty and engagement, as well as potentially, frankly, catastrophic changes to the value chain for consumer-facing business models. The third is hunting for affinity, and this is getting better. In this future, consumers have come to understand the power of personal data to facilitate meaningful relationships with brands that offer value and relevance to them. However, a lack of transparency from retailers and other service providers clouds the value exchange, and consumers become frustrated when those brands don't deliver what they want from them. The fourth, which we see as nirvana, is real relationships. In this future, consumers share their precious data to further and deepen the relationship because they know they'll get something meaningful back. The very high degree of consumer control implicit in this model ensures transparency and a rich exchange of value for information that provides benefit both to marketers on the one hand and the consumer on the other. So how do we build that real relationship nirvana? AIMIA has spent the last 2 decades conducting research and client engagements designed to identify and define the foundational elements of real relationships. Now, our definition isn't just something we've learned, it's based on very good academic underpinning. The commitment trust theory of relationship marketing, this was a theory developed from academic research at the University of Alabama in the early 1990s and published in a seminal article in the Journal of Marketing in July 1994. So 20 years ago, but very, very relevant today. We took that academic research and evolved it into a practical consulting methodology called the Relationship Strength Score. We've now honed that methodology in multiple client assignments across the automobile, retail, financial services, and travel sector. Our work has uncovered some very interesting and strong correlation between high relationship strength scores on the one hand and desired outcomes for retailers and service providers of the other. The obvious things of repeat purchase, intent to repurchase, and likelihood to recommend. So which scenario would you prefer? As marketers in a world driven by data, we face the choice between using information to benefit consumers or using it to exploit them. Now, whilst we aren't yet at that point where the needs of marketers and consumers are really diametrically opposed, we'll soon find ourselves having to take a philosophical stand. So are we in the business to extract value from customers, or in business to provide value to them? On one side of this philosophical divide stand consumers themselves. They're very aware of that rapidly expanding data footprint. They're both demanding and skeptical of traditional marketing. Nevertheless, they are willing to exchange personal data for relevant and valuable marketing offers. AIMIA's Millennial Loyalty Survey, which is a multi-country survey of Generation Y consumers, which we've conducted over the last few years, reveals that younger consumers are even more willing than their older counterparts to exchange personal information in exchange for rewards and recognition. Here in the Middle East, consumers are up to 2 times more likely to respond to social and online ads, with very little difference between millennials and non-millennials. So this market is primed for this kind of activity. But what is very interesting is, at the same time as having that higher willingness, they're only willing to receive marketing messages at a time, at a place, and in a channel of their choosing. So with awareness comes a responsibility to direct that material at them only when they wish to receive it. Now, potentially on the other side of that divide stand the marketers ourselves. We're excited by the potential of data analytics. It can uncover extraordinary insights. We can track behavior. We can communicate to consumers in real time. So we have now that opportunity to be always on as marketers. And it doesn't matter what channel, whether it's the PC, whatever those are anymore, hardly anybody uses them, whether it's mobiles, whether it's tablets, or whether it's some of these more futuristic devices like the Google Glasses. The question is, are we willing to deal with consumers on their own terms? We've identified, through the work we've done over the last number of years with our clients, 3 foundational elements of customer relationships that are critical to building that sustained brand loyalty and customer value. They're fairly obvious if you think about it: trust, commitment, and most importantly, reciprocity. Trusted brands are perceived as honest, ethical, believable, and possessed by high integrity. We establish trust with our customers by using personal data to deliver relevant offers, by practicing permission-based marketing, and by establishing a transparent value exchange in which consumers have a clear understanding of how data use actually benefits them. Customers are committed to brands that demonstrate commitment to them. For example, we know that in the Middle East, 83% of consumers recommend purchases to friends and family. At AIMIA, we demonstrate our commitment to our members by using data to make business personal. It might mean recognizing them with personalized status through a tiered loyalty program, by using customer data and insight to provide better service to them in the store, better merchandising, store design, and obviously in pricing. It means delivering relevant messages that provide clear value to your customer's preferred device. And these tactics demonstrate that commitment to those customers. For consumers, value comes in the form of rewards and recognition that strengthen their loyalty, and from the delight of discovering products and services that they might otherwise not have been aware of. It's this combination of perceived fair value exchange, surprise and delight that make customers true champions of your brands. The more our customers perceive and act upon those feelings of trust, commitment, and reciprocity, the more data they will actually share with us. So, to achieve this 4th state, the future of real relationships, we have to avoid diving headlong into pools of unstructured data. Rather, we must focus on smart data that we call customer-centric data. Customer-centric data sets are typically much smaller, 5 terabytes versus 5 petabytes, but they can yield dramatic and measurable results. So it's not the size of the data set that matters, it's the insight that's locked inside. Historically, the most important piece of the data puzzle has been the transaction, the data that tells you what, when, and where a customer buys from you. Now, if you're an e-commerce retailer or a payment card provider, that transactional data is an easy play. Legacy bricks and mortar retailers might find purchasing data harder to come by without a store card or a personal or a multi-tender loyalty program. Part of the potential in smart data, however, lies in our ability to add customer-centric data to that traditional transaction data throughout the consumer lifecycle. These new data sets provide extraordinary illumination of actual purchase behavior, they reinforce potential purchase behavior, and they provide levers in which to create those real relationships. So let me just run through a number of the types of data. Clearly, and we're all aware, it's part of what this conference is all about, is loyalty program data. By connecting purchase data to individual customers, loyalty programs allow you to devise test versus control environments, perform customer segmentation, and really measure very well the impact of your marketing offers. With that ability to reward customers based on their current and their potential value, currency-based programs provide an even richer data set. But it's not the only one, and when you add together the others, you get to a much more interesting place. Web analytics data. By connecting web search and online shopping behavior to actual eventual transaction data from the store, you can customize your web experience to the individual. Amazon, for example, famously conducts A/B tests down to the very level of font size and color to determine the impact of the online experience on purchase behavior. Shopper data. For retailers, SKU level and shopping basket data provides a nearly bottomless pit of insight on retail shoppers. Sophisticated retailers use shopper data to influence store design, to optimize pricing, and to help category managers make smarter promotional decisions. Auction data, eBay, for example. Understanding a customer's propensity to purchase and the price elasticity within an auction environment provides both brands and retailers with unique insights into pricing models and consumer behaviors. Social media data that we just heard about from the previous speaker. Just knowing how many Facebook users have liked your page tells you nothing about the impact between likes on sales. But what if you encourage customers to connect their social graph to the actual loyalty program membership? Then you can open up a rich vein of data that shows that the correlation between how social media likes actually translate into sales. Mobile data. Similarly, encouraging mobile engagement through a reward program app can uncover the location, the offer response, and even the in-store behavioral data that can enhance your ability to serve the customer well through the use of the mobile device. You'll also learn to focus on offers that enrich the mobile experience and eschew those that force customers to disengage. CRM data. By connecting purchase and loyalty data to data flowing from your call centers, from your returns department, and from your point of sale, you can develop very robust customer profiles that allow you to design differentiated experience for your most valuable customers. And finally, obviously, third-party data. The ability to overlay demographic and lifestyle data, other third-party data sets you may have on top of your core transaction data can unlock insight into the share of customer information, help identify underserved markets, and even help develop new market opportunities. Today, transaction data represents the floor of your marketing potential rather than your ceiling. The potential to tie interactions to transactions to fuel marketing insight and to leverage new communications channels to reward profitable behavior more rapidly bodes very well for the future of customer loyalty and marketing. Marketers that leverage customer-centric data may, with consumers' enthusiastic help, create the future of real relationships. And we know this works. We've done it ourselves in our own programs and for our clients. In Canada, by tapping the data of 4.6 million Aeroplan members, we've been successful in helping, for example, one partner achieve a 6-time increase in customer acquisition success, assisting another partner to increase its wallet share by 56%, and increasing a partner's basket spend of non-members of the program by 50%. In the UK, our loyalty analysts have helped our partners design smarter promotions by using a buy-two campaign as opposed to a 50% off sale, so same thing, two goods sold. we were able to lift SKU sales by 196%, increase new customers by 23%, and more importantly, increase the existing customer spend by 51%. These are spectacular results from the use of this quality of data. In the US, our packaged goods loyalty experts have worked with companies to achieve a threefold increase in a program's return on investment, an 80% conversion rate from program registrations, and a 50% email open rate. Here in the Middle East, our insight-driven strategies have helped clients increase customer spend lift by 32% through targeted weekly campaigns and upsell customers to premium products in a particular category by 47%. So these are isolated examples, but they're huge numbers by comparison with many of the traditional methods. So it shows that the power in real relationships is very significant. So the most obvious prediction we can make about the future of marketing in this big data, smart data world is that just as we think we found our place in this new world, and all of these things start to become understandable, they're all going to change yet again. Things like wearable smart devices are just the tip of the iceberg. Soon our homes, our appliances, and many of the products that we buy will be connected wirelessly to the cloud and will be transmitting data about our behavior back to the brand owners that will help them refine products and provide marketing insight and eventually delight customers. But just imagine how easy it is in that universe of ubiquitous data to actually upset people rather than delight them. Now, the dangers of offer anarchy and pay-to-play will remain omnipresent. Placing big data in the service of real relationships gives us the best chance to realize its potential. But if market forces fixate on short-term results, it will continue to point us more in the direction of dystopian outcomes. So unless we harness the power of consumer-centric data and put it to good use on the customer's behalf, we really will have a future that we don't enjoy. So to focus our efforts, consider rallying around these four simple principles in conclusion. Place all of your data efforts in the service of your customers. If you live by this principle, customers will reward you for it. Right here in the Middle East, your customers are actively using digital and social channels today, more than in many other places in the world, and your challenge is to help focus your customers' comfort level around the use of that data. To that end, I'd encourage you to focus on seeking permission, using the data transparently, and rewarding your customers for voluntarily sharing that information. Even the largest social and search giants will live or die on their willingness to serve their customers rather than to abuse their trust. Secondly, start with transactions, but add very quickly interactions. Connecting a purchase to an individual customer opens up tangible and immediate benefits. You can devise offers that increase lift, gain wallet share, and reduce churn, and you can measure the impact of each one, and then start connecting the dots from the transaction through to interactions, through social, through mobile, through web, to build a robust total view of the customer's current and potential value. Thirdly, build relationships based on trust, commitment, and reciprocity. Information is only useful if it provides insight that helps you strengthen relationship value. Customers are fickle, they're promiscuous, but they're loyal to brands that build trust through transparency and that demonstrate commitment through recognition and deliver reciprocity by giving something back in rewards. We know that here in the Middle East, this question of trust and consumer privacy is of great concern, and it's actually more concerning to consumers here than it is in many other markets of the world. So data collected in the service of relationships that the consumer understands is serving them will pay real dividends on the investment. And finally, perhaps most importantly, is don't trade off the short term for the long term. Don't monetize your customers' individual data directly. Hold it as an asset like any other investment for the corporation. The incentives to sell that data can be very high, but resist it. The trade-off on short-term profits for long-term enterprise value is genuinely considerable, and if you treat data as a capital investment rather than a marketing expense, you'll be able to reap the rewards for a long time. So hold yourself as the caretaker of your customers' personal details, and they will reward it for you over the lifetime of your relationship with them. Now, if we rally around these principles as marketers, we'll ensure that a bright future where technology provides us with extraordinary opportunities for data collection and reciprocally for the marketing communications that come from that will provide us with a very secure place in building a future where real relationships take hold. Now, we may be some time away from some of the more futuristic technologies like wearable computers, but we are actually able to connect these dots now with existing technologies. We know where people are, we know where they shop, we know what they do with their day, we know what goods they buy, we know how they inform themselves about them. So much of these data sets is available now, but we have to use it in the service of the customers. In one line, I'd say it's the difference between using these tools to spy on our customers or using them to see the world through their eyes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rupert. So you talk about data, and loyalty programs are traditionally good tools to collect data. But these days, a lot of companies, particularly digital companies, are able to collect big data sets for free and even often without customers knowing it. Does that mean that loyalty programs will become less important?
I think loyalty programs that don't collect similar data and use it to generate real relationships will become less relevant. Just plastic cards that have somebody's basic data on them, so you know basically what they do. If you don't use that data smartly, other people will, and traditional loyalty programs will lose their relevance.
Okay. And I think for many marketers these days, what to do with data and what not to do with data is actually quite complex and a lot of trade-offs to be made. Can you talk a little bit about how AIMIA kind of makes those trade-offs, what to do with data in the programs that AIMIA owns?
Yeah, well, we try very hard to follow that principle of trust and reciprocity. So we have very explicit sign-up permissions when somebody joins the program. It's not 25 pages hidden in a PDF file that you have to click through. It's a very clear understanding of what the relationship is, what we'd like you to share with us, and what you'll get back for it. So that's the founding principle. And we never sell the data to third parties. It's very tempting to do so. Clearly, it's the business basis of many of the internet models out there, whether it's Facebook or Google, etc. You can create an extraordinary view of somebody from scraping public data sources, but if you then use that to go back to them with intrusive offers or intrusive insights into who they are without permission, you run into real trouble very quickly. And so we've designed all of our programs for ourselves and those we operate for clients very much based on the principles I've talked. If you're transparent up front and the consumer sees a real balance between what they're sharing with you and what they get back, you've got the basis of a very good long-term relationship.
Very good. Let's open it up for the floor. Any questions? I think there's one here.
Rupert, you travel the world and you get to see some key learnings around the world in loyalty and data and digital in different verticals. What's your key message for senior business leaders here on how they embrace a more aggressive journey towards making business personal?
Well, I think one of the advantages of being the head of a global company is you get to see that very similar evolutions of the use of data, of the use of new marketing techniques are occurring all at once all over the world. So I think the first thing to do, which is absolutely normal in this situation, is understand where best practice is from somewhere else in the world. As I said in my remarks, one of the most interesting things here is this is one of the most advanced markets in the world in terms of the willingness to engage with these electronic media in this area of the world. In fact, some of the learnings we've gained here in the Middle East, we're actually using elsewhere in terms of the life cycle of adoption of mobile technologies. So that's lesson one, is understand that you're not alone, that in various markets around the world you can get key learnings and import them to your local region, and reciprocally, some of what you're doing in your local region is highly relevant to the rest of the world. I think the second thing is what may happen elsewhere in the world can directly impact what may happen here. If you look at what's happening in the US and to a lesser extent in the European Union in terms of the use of data for marketing principles, if we get draconian legislation through some slip up in the US, and I don't mean this unkindly, it could pollute the rest of the world. If you get a set of draconian regulations in one jurisdiction, it could very quickly happen elsewhere. So I think as an industry of marketers, and I know there's both international brands as well as marketing services companies here, we have an extraordinary responsibility to make sure that in each market in which we operate, we're following best practice, because even though some regulatory environments are much looser than others, the moment we make a serious mistake in one, it's going to translate quickly into others. I think the final thing that is really fascinating for us is that having done this survey of millennials, where the assumption is that cultural differences make a huge difference to marketing, with this new generation that's coming through, it is a global generation. So they're just as likely to read something or see something that's happened in Japan as they are to see something that's happened in Mexico if they're living in the UK. So that globalization of consumers, I think, actually makes things easier for us as marketers, but it also means, as I said earlier, something that goes wrong or you don't do well in one market very, very quickly gets to another.
Very good. I think there's a question over there at the back of the room.
Hi, I have the mic because I had a question. My name is Maya. I work for HSBC. Rupert, thank you very much. That was really insightful. My question you sort of touched upon, but it has to do with the fact that as you speak, my mind goes to some of the greatest concerns we are dealing with at the moment, which has to do with the sort of anti-forces, right? So you're talking a lot about all the positive effects of data, the growth of data and the linking of data, whereas from our point of view, there's also a massive risk to that. And we see it growing as fraudsters, as all sorts of money launderers or other types of industries are actually using this to their benefit. So one of the things actually this morning I was reading through is our information security and risk team are sort of coming to me for some advice on how we can further educate our customers on what data they share with us, in which forums. And what I'm feeling is we're almost heading towards more and more restriction of data in certain industries. And in my mind, I can't reconcile the two. I just see two very, very different groups of industries forming around utility of data in the future. I just wonder what your views are on that. Apologies for the complex question, I guess. Thank you.
You've hit the word on the head. The nub of the issue is this is an incredibly complex environment. I think you are likely to actually see, rather than blanket circumstances applying to everybody, I think you're going to have two very different sets of data usage and data understanding coming forward. I think you're going to have closed loop systems, and by a closed loop system I mean something like a coalition loyalty program at one extreme, or at the other a personal banking relationship, all of which is behind a very robust firewall. Now clearly those firewalls are occasionally breached, but if the concept on the one hand is closed loop relationships, where the consumer has implicitly, and in our view explicitly, agreed to the use of that data, if we behave well, I think that universe is actually quite secure. On the other hand side, you have got what I would call the open loop systems, and those are the Facebooks, the Twitters, the other social media things where they can correlate what you do and how you do it, and your family and your demography and your likes and your dislikes, and then use those, as I said, to essentially monetize your personal data. That's where I think there is an extraordinary degree of risk. And what happens on that side of the fence may well actually make it harder to operate closed-loop systems. And I think our objective as marketers should be, insofar as possible, to resist buying data on the open market, essentially, and applying it in our closed-loop systems. They really need to be separate ecosystems, because my personal view is that certainly in the US, there will be major errors made in the open environment that could very quickly, given the way that US Congress works, affect the closed-loop environment, and I think that's what we have to guard against. In terms of the individual, I think we could well see a future where the individual actually becomes personally, either by proxy or directly themselves, the guardian of all of their own data. And you're actually having to negotiate it, almost the individual consumer data, to use the data that actually reinforces your relationship with them. Again, I think we want to guard against it getting that far, but it will only get that far if on the way we have abused that trust. So that would be my view of the response to your question. And it clearly, particularly in the financial services world, where very, very small errors or very small abuses of data become headline news just because of the attitudes to banks around the world, it's one of the highest risk points in my view.
Rupert, do you think that young people are conscious enough of those risks?
Well, our research suggests that they're much more conscious of those risks than their parents or their grandparents. There is an exception. In fact, here in the Middle East, it seems as if the middle age group is actually as aware of those risks as the younger age group. But in most markets around the world, even though we think that the Facebook generation share far too much, I have that discussion with my daughters on a regular basis, in fact, they're very, very much more conscious of the dangers around that than the next generation after. So I think in some ways, the risk generation is a sort of a 30 to 50 group globally. It's not the youngsters. They get this much better than we give them credit for. But that's probably true about most things with our children. We think they're not as smart as they are, and they know that they're smarter than we are. So.
Thank you. I think there was a question over there at the end of the room.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
Oh, you can. Sorry. I am Kashif Afandi from Abu Dhabi National Industrial Projects. I've been following the social media thread since yesterday. And my question is, do you think that the increasing use of social media is making consumers more fickle and less brand loyal?
Yeah, the easy answer to that is yes. I think what's actually happening is it's informing them much better about a product or service's true qualities as opposed to what advertisers want us to believe. So the truth factor in social media is very real. You know, if you're a service company and you make 3 or 4 service failures, 5 years ago even, let alone 10 years ago, you could bury those 5 service failures and nobody would know. Yes, they might tell their friends or their family around the dinner table. Now, suddenly, 1 million people will know that you mucked up on this, or that this product actually breaks after 3 weeks and is useless. So I think what it's done is actually increase the need for honesty in your marketing and for very rapid service recovery if there's been a failure. If the service hasn't worked or the product has broken, then I think you actually need much better quality follow-up than you previously have had. What does that mean? It means that you spend a lot more operating costs to get your product right. How do you avoid that? Well, you actually listen to consumers very quickly and use that feedback loop to iron out the deficiencies in your products and services. So social media per se, I think, forces honesty from corporations in a way that has not been the case in the past, but it also offers that great opportunity to both build that very quickly back into your product development cycle and also fix your customer service. And there's tons of research that shows even if you have a service failure, you know, you miss your flight, you lose your bags, using an airline example, or you can't get through in a call center, it's how you fix that afterwards that determines the brand resonance that's left with the consumer. Because consumers know that every company makes mistakes. It's a question of how you fix them. So I see social media as raising the bar substantially, but also for the nimble company, giving it a very rapid feedback route to get things right.
Good.
So I'd just like to point you in the direction of this white paper at the back. It's available at the AIMIA stand. It's called The Four Futures, and it summarizes what I've been talking about today.
Thank you very much, Rupert. Thank you very much for traveling all the way from Canada to share your thoughts with us. And
Very
one
welcome.
round of applause for Rupert Duchesne.